6 we got to take home, eh? It looks like lynx to me. My wife is Dene. She makes mucklucks. So here we are. There's a cut line heading right to the Clearwater Lake. I'm using nickel plated cases. Nobody's been in there for a long time. That's your language. Hello and welcome back to the Lady Native Chronicles. We're out at the new trap line here and we're doing some exploring because there's a lot to explore. This is quite a large trap line. This is in northern Alberta, say about 40 kilometers south of Chipewyan Lake. And since purchasing the trap line, there's been a whole lot of logging activity going on here. And that has changed the landscape substantially, very substantially. But there are some sections of land that have been set aside to be protected, fortunately, and I'm standing right in the middle of one of those pieces here. This trap line doesn't have a trapping cabin on it, so we're going to have to start from scratch here, and that is one of the objectives of this trip, is to find a location to put the trap line and maybe get in contact with the logging companies and talk them into dragging a few logs for us or leave some logs for us to build the cabin. We'll need about 60 logs, around 10-inch diameter at the base, so that they're not too big to manage. All still pretty preliminary, but this area looks really good for game. There's lots of rabbit sign and I see some lynx sign as well. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to take you along for a bit of a ride through some of this beautiful country that we're fortunate to have rights to for trapping, and let you see a little bit of the logged areas as well, and give you a feel for the type of area in northern Canada that you would be trapping in if you haven't seen that before. So without any further ado, let's hop in the truck and let's explore this area a little bit, and I'll catch you when we come out. Pretty long stretch with no logging in this area, so this is kind of the pristine area. This is another location. Another possible location. Yeah, but it's further from the lake here. Tracks in line like that. It looks like lynx to me. We're heading straight up to the lake right now, so we're as close as we get.
There's the...
Oh, yeah. What's that going on there? There's some other tracks over here. Oh, but there's rabbits and lynx. There's rabbit in this area. Very nice. This is a very little traveled road, but this is location that has a cut line heading right to the south end of Clearwater Lake. It's a pretty overgrown cut line, but it is walkable. They've already cleared off this section on the side of the road here, and there is a lot of logs laid down the logging company leaves those for us, we could use those. It would probably be easily sufficient to make a cabin with what's laying there. Could maybe get a vehicle through here, should be able to, and drive right in and have a cabin right more or less against those trees there. I think we could get the logging company to leave those for us. Let's see how many we got there. We want about 60 logs of about that size. That's around 10-inch diameter at the base. Yeah, that must be around a good 60 logs there. But right there is, I think, where we could put the cabin. It's nice and level. Might even just pull in a temporary one for now. Well, we're taking a little side trip here, and it's a good thing I have these warm mitts on. I just want to go over a little bit of the gear that we have on this trip. Typical kind of stuff. You do want to have really warm mitts. We got our 44 Magnum here. I reload these and I cast my own bullets. I'm using nickel plated cases, and that's a lot because I carry them in the loops of the belt as well, and the leather is a bit acidic and it can etch brass if it sits there for long periods of time, so just as well to use nickel plated brass for your ammunition for your handgun. You want to have a few rounds on the back to top up your cylinder. If you just take 1 or 2 shots, if there's a threat and then you're not sure if anything's going to happen, you don't want to necessarily use a speed loader because you already got 4 or 5 live rounds in the gun. So you just take some out of the belt and you can put that, top your cylinder up a little bit. Now with this holster, you can see we're in snowy conditions here, so it's a good idea to have a flap, just like the old RCMP did. They know what they're doing. The bottom of this holster, that's closed off with leather, sewed onto the bottom, because if you're kneeling in the snow, especially with this long barreled gun, it doesn't take much before you're right in the snow, right? If I have to work on something, my muzzle of my gun is in the snow now. Now speaking of all that, that's where the mucklucks come in handy too. My wife is Dene, she's treaty. She's learned all the skills of her people from her parents, and she makes mucklucks and many other things, including these mittens that I'm wearing. Now these mucklucks are just the best that you can have for these kind of conditions, because you're going to be walking around, your boots will fill up, your pants get wet, but you can see as I'm walking here, my pants are going to stay drier, because if the pants get wet, even though you have good boots, they wick down to your feet and your socks get wet. Plus, and for me, I think it's kind of the best thing about them. They're just so light, it's like walking around in your stocking feet. So if you're doing a lot of walking, having some mucklucks is a good thing. Really good thing. And they're as warm as anything. What we do is we put some wide felt liners on the bottom of them too. Give you a little bit of padding when you're stepping on little logs and sticks and stuff. These ones here have got a lot of old moose blood stains on them, so you can see they've been getting used pretty good. My wife's little sideline is called Nakia's Native Crafts. If you're interested, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my email address on the end screen of this video. Fire me off an email and I'll put you in contact with her. You can look her up on Facebook as well. She makes rifle cases, moccasins for around the house, moss bags like papooses for babies, a whole bunch of stuff. Really, really fine work made with the types of furs that will be taken off this trap line. Trapping is not very lucrative anymore in terms of the price of furs, but that's one way to make it return some money, to add value to the products that you're trapping. put them into crafts like this. Let's continue on this trip and see where these roads take us. Pull a lot of links out of here maybe. This area is nice and undisturbed. A little bit hilly. So here we're, as far as the logging roads go, down towards the Wabasca River, which is right down there, and right over there is a nice level spot where we could build a cabin as well. It's a little further traveling in off the road, but you know, it is a nice spot. You'd have a fairly close access to water too, and coming up the river perhaps on a boat, we could come up here. So another possibility, maybe a potential for a line cabin. Yeah, there's a couple there. Lots of rabbit sign. It's a logging area. It's a good little stretch. Well, I hope you enjoyed that trip with us. The weather is pretty cold. We went through a lot of roads that there wasn't any tire tracks on, but the snow hasn't been too deep yet, so we're okay. But when you're traveling these roads, you really got to be sure that you don't get stuck, because there's nobody out here to help you. Right now I'm stopped at this area where we're thinking of getting a cabin built, and I think we've done our exploration for the day, and we're going to head back home. So until next time, if you enjoy the content of this channel, I encourage you to subscribe if you haven't already, and just smash that like button. It lets YouTube know that this is the kind of content that people like. So I really appreciate the support you give us. Okay, catch you next time. God bless. Nobody's been in here for a long time. Those are the only tracks coming out.